Welcome to this explainer. I'm stepping in today as your senior academic mentor, and you should absolutely consider this your ultimate exam prep tool. Human behavior is so wildly complex that researchers literally spent a century just arguing about how to even look at it. Well, today, we're going to decode exactly how they map these complexities. We'll be breaking down case studies, ethnographies, and cultural fields, giving you a rock-solid study guide to absolutely master these social research methods. Let's get into it. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll move from the philosophy of social reality right into case studies, ethnography, cultural fields, adapting to the digital age, and finally, your exam revision guides. All right, kicking things off with part 1, the philosophy of social reality. So to really get these methodologies, it's absolutely crucial to understand their historical roots. They didn't just appear out of nowhere. They evolved to answer some pretty profound questions about how knowledge is actually formed. The philosopher Wilhelm Dilthey introduced this massive distinction that still completely shapes research today. First, you have Erklären, which is explanation. This is your explanatory research goal, seeking universal cause and effect relationships. Think of it as knowing that if you drop your phone, the screen will shatter. On the flip side is Verstehen, or understanding. This is the interpretive goal. This is knowing why you threw the phone in the first place. It's all about grasping nuanced meanings. And that is exactly why social research heavily prioritizes interpretive Verstehen over mere measurement. Now that leads us to another core challenge, articulated by Max Weber, known as the structure-agency problem. Think about this for a second. Is human behavior predetermined by invisible societal cages, or is it actively created through our own free individual choices? It's a huge debate. Keep this tension in the back of your mind as we open up our methodological toolkit today. Moving on to part 2, case studies, our macro lens. To really grasp how these methods observe social reality, let's use some photography analogies. It helps make the abstract a bit more concrete. Think of a case study as your camera's macro lens. It's designed to intensely investigate a bounded system. Now, that system could be a single individual, a specific organization, or just one local community. By zooming all the way in, the researcher reveals those incredibly intricate, complex details of daily life that broader, zoomed-out surveys simply fly right over. But you might be wondering, how do we make this rigorous? Well, Robert K. Yen, a leading authority here, emphasizes the absolute necessity of triangulation. You can't just rely on one single source, right? You need step 1, interviews, combined with step 2, direct observations, and step 3, gathering documents and artifacts. When you intentionally combine these multiple sources of evidence to look at the exact same phenomenon, you drastically improve your research depth and the overall validity of your study. And keep in mind, case studies aren't just a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. They have tailored strategies. Exploratory studies map out completely new territory. Descriptive studies give these really comprehensive accounts of how a specific system runs. And explanatory studies test if theoretical relationships actually manifest in the real world. A classic example you should know is William Foote White's Street Corner Society. His intensive study of a single Italian-American neighborhood revealed profound, much broader patterns of social hierarchy and community dynamics. Let's jump to part 3, ethnography, or the documentary camera. Okay, so if a case study is a macro lens, ethnography is the documentary filmmaker's camera. With ethnography, you aren't just snapping a quick picture. You're keeping the camera rolling as life naturally unfolds over an extended period. Bronislaw Malinowski really pioneered this approach with his participant observation in the Trobriand Islands. He realized, quite brilliantly, that a genuine holistic understanding of a culture only emerges from prolonged, intimate engagement with a community. Through this extended filming, ethnographers are aiming for what Clifford Geertz famously termed thick description. Geertz argued that culture is essentially a web of significance that humans spin themselves into. So thick description isn't just mechanically logging that someone blinked. It's figuring out if that blink was an involuntary reflex, a playful flirtation, or maybe a hidden secret code. It interprets those intricate webs, revealing the multiple layers of meaning behind everyday social phenomena. Naturally, doing this requires a highly delicate methodological balance. Geertz distinguished between experienced near and experienced distant concepts. As a researcher, you have to carefully translate the meaningful terms participants use for their own lived experiences into the analytical frameworks of academia, and you have to do this without imposing external categories that distort their reality. Honestly, it's an incredibly demanding act of translation. Which brings us to part 4, cultural fields, our composition rules. To complete our photography analogy,
Cultural fields are the composition rules guiding exactly how elements relate to create the final image. This is where Pierre Bourdieu comes in. Now, his writing is famously as dense as a black hole, but he brilliantly synthesized previous philosophical theories specifically to overcome that tricky structure-agency opposition we discussed earlier. He wanted to explain exactly how people have agency, but still act within highly structured social spaces.
So, the crucial takeaway here is understanding how Bourdieu's three key concepts interact. First, you have the field, which is the structured context or arena of play. Then you have habitus, which refers to an individual's deeply internalized dispositions and preferences, basically their ingrained way of navigating the world. Finally, you have capital, the operative resources you use to gain an advantage, which can be cultural knowledge, social networks, or symbolic prestige. Your habitus and your accumulated capital entirely dictate your social actions within any given field. I want to pause here for a quick moment of mentorship. Ask yourself right now, how does your own background, your own habitus, and the capital you personally possess affect your interpretation of data? This highlights the absolute necessity of reflexivity. Your research is never entirely neutral. It's always situated in your own context. You have to constantly acknowledge the analytical lenses you bring to the field to maintain true validity.
All right, part 5, adapting to the digital age. Social research isn't static, right? Today, researchers are creating incredible modern synergies to map our highly interconnected realities. For instance, we see ethnographic case studies that blend the intensive focus of a case study with the cultural arguments of ethnography. We also have netnography, a term coined by Robert Kozinets, which brilliantly adopts traditional research for modern virtual communities. Think about applying that traditional triangulation, combining interviews, observations, and artifacts, but doing it to rigorously observe complex interactions within a global online forum. It's a total game changer. And finally, part 6, your exam revision guides. Okay, here is the final payoff, your comparative summary for quick exam prep. The case study uses the macro lens for deep focus via triangulation, but remember its main weakness. It's hard to generalize to larger populations. Ethnography uses the documentary camera for immersive, thick description, though its specific weakness is just how incredibly time-consuming and subjective it can be. Finally, cultural fields provide the composition rules to understand structural relationships through habitus and capital, but sometimes this approach can feel a bit too theoretically deterministic. Definitely lock these pros and cons into your memory. To wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with one vital thought. Remember that knowledge is always situated. As you step out of the classroom and into the field to conduct your own research, I challenge you to constantly ask yourself, what unseen lenses are shaping your view of reality? Treat your research not just as some mechanical task to check off, but as a deliberate, profoundly analytical, and ethical engagement with the world. Keep questioning, keep observing, and good luck mapping reality.